Chill. Waiting in lobby. We know.
No, I don't need that. I just want to give you your own one because they keep stealing all about iPhone chargers.
If you need it.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Can you all hear us?
Yep.
Okay, no worries. Could we please just ask if everyone please put their microphones on mute just to prevent leakages and noise? And we'll start in a few minutes. We're just waiting for a few more people to join us. Yeah. Like 2 minutes. Okay, I think we should start now.
Sure.
All right, no worries. So everyone, I think we're going to start the session now. Thank you all for taking the times out of your day to join us. My name is Tino. I'm the manager of music investment at Sound New South Wales, and
My name is Rosie, and I'm Venue Support Coordinator at Sound New South Wales.
right. And so look, both of us are in charge of the Venues Unlocked initiative. As you guys may know, and this is Program 2. So Program 2 is a stream of the Venues Unlocked initiative that is targeted at dedicated live music venues. Now, we're going to go through a bit of the eligibility criteria as we go through, but that specifically is the program. So, get to the next slide.
Yeah, I might just.
Give us 1 second. We're having some technology issues. We'll be back. I think he's the last one.
He's on. Like not connecting that to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not connecting that to that, so I'm just going to share.
Yeah, share screen.
No, you do run through and run through. I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
Yeah. Just give us 1 second, everyone. We'll be just a couple of seconds, just some tech issues. Yeah, just try to do the second one. There we go.
Great.
All right. And now we're back. Okay, so just to begin the presentation, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. So that is the Direct Nation of the Direct Nation of Eora, and pay my respects to the elders past and present. Next one. Next one. So in this session today, what we're going to be speaking about is sort of the grants program overview, the objectives, the eligibility criteria, the application process, and a bit of information around how to answer the questions, what you should be including in your applications, and things to sort of look out for, as well as a bit of terminology. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you do have a question, we ask if you could put the question in the chat, and then at the end, we're going to go through all of the questions and go from there as well. And also what we're going to do is we're going to add, again, the program guidelines just to the chat, just because, especially with these grants, especially with program 2, the guidelines and the eligibility criteria are going to be your best friends. They're there for a reason. They're obviously to create the parameters of what the grants are, but it's also there for the application process to be a lot easier. All right, so Sound New South Wales. So I know a lot of you already know a little bit about Sound New South Wales, but we are a government or a state government body that is looking to revitalize the Australian music industry. That doesn't necessarily mean just artists, but also venues, festivals, as well as other entities within the music industry. Especially coming and speaking to a lot of you, coming off COVID over the last 2 years, as well as now as we're seeing rising costs in general, throughout all different industries, it is a bit of a tough time for venues. And this grant really is meant to really support venues, help them with the infrastructure, so sort of help them with short-term, medium-term, as well as long-term investment, but also really help them sort of figure out a way of how we can get through this tough period of time. Because at the end of the day, as businesses, venues are the ones who are obviously hosting the music. They host the tours. So they're extremely important in the development of music within New South Wales in general. So in 2023 to 2024, in our last program, we invested over $15 million in different venues, and that was the Venues Unlock program. And yeah. Okay, so just a little bit more of an overview. So last year we had 20 venues apply with 20 venues accepted. And just to give you context, this venue is an expanded program. So last year, the last previous iteration of this program was just soundproofing. But this year's program is going to be soundproofing, accessibility, sustainability, and then production. So that's visual and audio production. And to be honest, a lot of these changes actually came through feedback from different venues. The feedback that we were getting was soundproofing was a bit too narrow, and there were other works that venues needed that was a bit more of a priority. So we decided to sort of expand the offering. And again, the purpose of this is to really try to future-proof the venues that are going to be selected for the next 2 to 3 years, to make sure that, one, your venues are able to be profitable, but also dealing with other issues such as, sound complaints, and dealing with all, liquor and gaming, and dealing with all other issues that venues may face that may sort of hinder them from being successful. Next one. Okay, so if we can go to the year ahead, I explained this a little bit, but the program is aimed at, individuals who sort of have a 2 to 3 year plan. I'd probably say that program 2 is very different because, we're going to be looking in these applications, in the application program, for venues that have a long-term music strategy. So I understand a lot of the venues that I hear, a lot of the venues that we use have multi-purpose. So whether that be, whether that be food, whether that be, a gaming function, whether that be weddings, a lot of the venues have multi-functions. But specifically for this program, for program 2, we are going to need to see a large emphasis in music programming, a large emphasis in the investment in music programming in the venue, as well as a plan for 2 to 3 years in how we are going to, I guess, continue that programming, as well as a large emphasis in Australian music programming. So that could be local, local music, interstate music, as well as international touring, but a large emphasis on does your venue program original Australian music? Okay. So again, just going to a little bit of some of our aims. So our aim obviously is to support New South Wales live music venues to achieve best practice, to support revitalizing the Australian music, the New South Wales music industry, to enhance and expand the number of live music options for New South Wales residents. That's a very important one, because I know, speaking to a couple of venues already, a lot of venues have decided that they wanted to sort of expand the offering in their venue. So, maybe go from having one room to having 2 rooms, and separating that separating that function, which is something that we're also, that's something that we're able to support as well. If you want to sort of increase the number of, I guess, rooms within your venue. I know we've had a lot of questions about that. And lastly, to build businesses and community confidence in the live music industry. Now, this is probably something that we don't need to, talk to you about, because you as venues, you're very in the know. But, venues are extremely important in the music community. Like I said, COVID, as well as other increasing costs, has really impacted the music community in a bunch of different ways. Now, our hopes is, obviously, with helping venues revitalize, with us investing in these venues, that we're gonna get back into having a thriving community. If we don't have thriving venues, we don't have thriving artists, we don't have thriving fans. So this is going to be extremely important in sort of increasing community confidence in the music industry as well. Now, again, some of our objectives would also be, in terms of our results, would be to build capability for dedicated live music venues. So again, whether that be accessibility, whether that be sustainability and reducing costs, or whether that be just in general upgrading different production requirements, whether that be sound or whether that be video. We also want to increase the number of fit-for-purpose live music venues. And you're going to hear a lot about us. You probably see a lot of it in the application form. And I know I'm speaking a lot about it as well, in terms of fit-for-purpose live music venues. So currently, through our studies, we did a search, and there are currently 50 fit-for-purpose live music venues. And the way that we describe live music venues is in the eligibility criteria in the application. But there is a set of different parameters, ranging from whether your venue programs music 3 days a week, or 3 days or 3 nights a week, whether you have a dedicated music person within your venue. So there's different parameters in what we consider as a live music venue, but we are hoping, obviously, in the next 2 to 3 years, even this year, to increase that number from our perspective. And also, most importantly, we want to increase the diversity of live music offerings throughout the audience. So we have, in this call, we have people who, are in the rock space. We have people who are in the hip hop space, who are in the dance space. We want to make sure that we have representation. We have people from CBD. We have people from, regional, remote areas. So we really want to make sure that we are being extremely diverse in the live music offerings that we have.
Spreading around.
Yeah, we want to spread it around. We want to spread the love. We want to make sure that everyone's happy as much as we can.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, so let's get into the seriousness. Program 2. So this is the key information. So obviously the program is up to 250,000. So That's the maximum dollar you can apply for. But again, you don't necessarily need to apply for the 250,000. If you have something specific that you would like to apply for and it's not 250,000, please feel free to, adjust that figure to what it is. But the maximum amount is 250,000. 70% of and this is very important, just when it comes to quoting, when you reach out to your suppliers, and just for yourself in regards to the funding. So 70% of the approved funds are transferred on approval, and then 30% of the funds are transferred on the completion of the project. And if you haven't already gone through a grant with New South Wales, with the New South Wales government, essentially you have different stages that you have to complete. And once those different stages are complete, at the end of it, obviously it's the completion, but we go through a process of evaluation at each of those stages. And there are 3 stages. And then at the end, that's when the last 30% will be allocated to you. Now, again, as I said, the funding would be for equipment, soundproofing, ventilation, accessibility, and energy efficiency. And for example, you have the flexibility to divide the money based on what the project is for. So for example, if you wanted to do 100,000 on accessibility, 100,000 on ventilation, and 50,000 on soundproofing, that's something that is something that is allowed. So, as long as, the highest amount you apply for is 250,000. So you'll be able to divide that up based on the needs of what your business needs, which again was very different to last year's offering, which was just very specific to soundproofing. And yeah. Okay, so before applying, and again, I encourage everyone, if you do have any more questions, please reach out to us directly. Rosie is your point of contact. And there are probably 50 to 60 people in this call. So please, 50, 60 people, do not send Rosie an email at the same time. But Rosie will be your point in contact. She will answer any questions that you guys have. So if you're applying for the grant and you are stuck, I really recommend you reach out to us first. We offer 15-minute 15 to 20-minute consultations where we can sort of go through any questions that you have. So, before we keep going, I do encourage you, if you have any more specific questions for, what your venue needs, please reach out.
And just these next few slides, there's 3 slides all on eligibility. It's worth a conversation if 1 or 2 of the criteria you're like, oh, it's a bit of a stretch. If you're finding that 7 of the criteria you're not meeting, then maybe this iteration isn't for you, and I would have a look at program 1, which we're going to be discussing on Thursday, and come to that info session. Sorry, we just lost it. Keep going.
Yeah. So before applying, again, please consider if you are primarily a live music venue. So again, this is all within the eligibility criteria. So please consider, do you program music at least 3 times a week? Is your marketing within your venue, is that dedicated to live music? Do you have a dedicated individual in your venue who's dedicated for music programming? Do you program original Australian content? Are you a part of a local or international touring circuit? Please read the criteria. And like Rosie said, if, for example, you do not necessarily meet all of these criteria, please also consider program 1. Because again, the venues in program 1 hopefully next year will be eligible for program 2. So if you don't apply for this one, don't feel discouraged. We also have a program 1 that may be a bit more specific to you. And just moving on, again, another one that's extremely important here is applicants must also hold a lease or occupancy agreement with at least 2 years remaining. So, for example, if you do not own the venue and you lease the venue that you're at, you need to have a lease agreement of at least 2 years, and you also need to have a letter of approval from the individual who owns the venue saying that you are approved to do the works. Because we do not want to get to a stage where you're approved to get the money, you're approved to get the works, and then the individual who owns the venue, individual that owns the venue doesn't want you to complete the work. That's a bit of a headache for everyone. So please make sure if you do not own the venue, you hold a lease agreement, at least a 2-year lease agreement, as well as have a letter of support from the individual who owns or the individuals who own the venue. Yeah. Now, again, to the $1 million question, and I keep going back to this. What is considered to be a live music venue?
The big one.
Yeah, and I know we've just received a question in the chat, someone asking, let me get to it specifically. Someone asking, what is a dedicated live music venue? So these are all of the factors that we consider, right? Now, for example, you might see yourself in a situation where, if I look at these 10 factors, let's just say you're in a situation where about three out of the 10 sort of apply to you. If you're in that situation, please reach out to us. We can have a conversation on, whether, it's worth moving forward. But again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us and let's have a conversation. That's what we're there for. That's what we're here for. We also understand, venues are very different. They have different capacities, different functions, different business, different monetary constraints. So look, please reach out to us and we can have a conversation about it. Yeah. So again, who can't apply? So, any business or organization that does not satisfy the eligibility criteria, any businesses located outside of New South Wales, venues with more than 10 gaming machines, please, that is extremely important. Venues with more than 10 gaming machines, unfortunately, cannot apply for this iteration of this program. Again, venues with exclusive memberships, venues owned by either the government, so local, state, or federal, for educational purposes, and that's because there's other options in the New South Wales government's dedicated for those local, state, federal government venues. Venues with a producer, wholesale, limited, pop-up, or packaged liquor license. And just on that one, with that liquor license, if you do have that license, then you can apply for program 1, right? And again, religious institutions and services, leagues, clubs of Australia. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so application preparation. This is just a list of all the different type of terminology that you may see that, is a bit confusing and is very specific to, I guess, government grants. So a project plan. So a project plan details how you will use the funds, what activities you will achieve, and how you will measure and report your progress. Now, this is all within the application form, which is in the grant. What I would say for the project plan, please be very specific and have high attention to detail. With the project plan, this is what the assessors are going to be looking at when they assess your application. So this is the part in the application process where we get an opportunity to read what the plan is. Again, what you're going to use the money for, what the activities will achieve, but also a bit of a plan, a bit of an understanding of what your venue is, what your venue is trying to achieve this year, next year, in in the next couple of years, as well as in the project plan, I'd also include a bit of information on the impact your venue has on your community, wherever your community is, whatever genre of music that you focus in, whatever your community is, please, I would advise you also just to talk a little bit about your community and the impact your venue has to the community and how this venue will benefit the community that you serve. Then we have the budget again. And obviously, when it comes to the financials, please be as specific as you can, because again, as we look through your application, if you are successful in moving forward, your project budget has to be specific and it has to be, I guess, there's not, especially with this iteration, we're not going to move forward with flexibility within the budget. So please make sure that you include specific information when it comes to your quotes, which is asked in the application, and just be very specific with your budgeting. And then we get into co-contribution. So a co-contribution is the amount that will be contributed by the venue. So we're asking for 30%. So last year was just 30% financially, but this year we're also asking for, it could either be 30% financially or 30% in kind. And if you have any questions about what that 30% in kind is and how that's more specific to your venue, again, please send us an email, and then we can speak about what that 30% in kind is specifically for your venue. And again, forgive me if I'm, not being necessarily broad in my conversation. I'm just noting that all of you have very, very different venues. You have very different requirements. So having specific conversations oftentimes may be your best bet, just so we can make sure that we are tailoring everything to you specifically. And yeah.
Yeah, great. I think it's over to me.
Yeah. Now over to the amazing Rosie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for most of you being camera on. It makes it much more comfortable for Tina and I as we're presenting. It's much appreciated. So I am going to be running you through a bit more of the specifics on the application process. If you have any questions at the end, pop them in the chat and we can run through it at the Q&A. Anything we don't get to today, if we run out of time, as Tino said, I'm your point of contact. So you can feel free to reach out with me with your question, and I'll get back to you ASAP. So in starting the application, the first obviously is to open the Smarty Grants portal. For those of you that haven't checked it out at the end of this meeting, we recommend getting onto that as soon as possible so that you can see, get yourself comfortable with the platform, how it works. It is easy to understand. However, any difficulty there, I'm the person to contact and I can run you through any questions you might have. Tina's already spoken a bit about this, but the next would be outline of experience and gathering the evidence that you'll need to support your application. So obviously, in applying for grants like this, you want to put your best foot forward. So as much that you can gather as in forms of letter of support, evidence of how you've provided to your music community and to the broader New South Wales contemporary live music programs. All of that great stuff, gather it together and put it in your application. It's consider it a business pitch, and the more that you can provide and show on why you and your venue deserves this grant, will obviously put you in the best case for getting through. The next most important step is also to start gathering your quotes for advice. It is a minimum of 2 quotes that you need. There's many reasons for this, but we understand in certain areas it can be difficult for venues to get more than 1 quote due to constraints of the amount of suppliers in their area and timeframes. So it's really important that you get onto that quote section as soon as possible. Here's a little document checklist for you all. I noticed some of you are writing notes as well. I'm happy to send around these slides. So any of the information that's here, we can just send through to a PDF for you. So don't feel like you have to take screenshots and be too taking too many notes on this. You just relax. We'll make sure you have all the information. But support letters from premise owners, Tina already spoke a little bit about this, but transparency with your premise owners is 100% essential for this process. Copy of lease and deed, bank statements to provide your proof of funds, detailed project plan, again, making sure that you have those 2 quotes, a detailed budget, and relevant venue assessments. Now, for any questions on the milestone payments, we have 2 milestone payments. I'm just seeing there's an error in the slide here, and that's my apologies. It's 250,000, clearly, not 20,000. However, yes, milestone 1 is 70% on approval of your project plan, so that's to get you started, and milestone 2 is the remaining 30%. And that you have to make sure that all of your documentation and final certification of any of the building works is submitted for that last 30% payment. Key dates. So applications are open, which is very exciting. So as soon as this meeting ends, you can go into Smarty Grants portal and open and have a look around and get yourself familiar. Applications close on the 17th of March. So like I said, try and be as proactive as possible and, start getting all your quotes, all of your evidence together, your project plan, your budget. Get working on that as soon as possible so that you are prepared and have, the best opportunities to succeed in this. Assessment period will be 6 weeks after the application close date. And the project timeline, the project works cannot begin prior to the 14th of March, and they have to be completed by the 30th of June 2026. A key point to note with the project timeline is that there's new iterations of grants that are released every year. The sooner that you wrap these up, the sooner that you can apply for another grant and another round. So again, like I said, proactiveness is key in making sure that you really start getting your project plan and evidence gathered. Here we have a few steps for you, a few pointers along the way. The first is to make sure that you address the grant criteria in your response. Tino said this, spoken to this a little bit, but concentrate on the impact of the community, the ways that your venue, why it's so special, and look at what the assessors are considering for their responses, and make sure that you address that and answer the question. Think of it like writing a resume to a specific job and you're selling your business to it. Make sure that you track your progress along the way and ensure that you have a solid team with you to help you through. You can consider me one of your teammates, by the way, so you've already got one on site. Reach out again to me if you need any help, and make sure that you stay informed. If you decide not to proceed with application for this, we strongly recommend signing up to Sound New South Wales newsletter. There's constantly new grants and iterations of these, so make sure that you stay informed and aware so that you can be first on board. Application tips. First is to make sure that you're very prepared for your application. So read through all the guidelines and FAQ section. They're on the website. Again, start your project application early. So as soon as we finish the meeting, get on there. Have a thorough understanding of your scope. Consider all the costs and funds that's needed, what your contribution's going to be, whether, as Tino said, it's going to be in kind or cash. Your project timeline, prepare all of your quotes, consider how your project will address the criteria and how you are going to support this, and ensure that you have access and evidence of your co-funding of the overall project costs, or again, how you plan that in-kind contribution to be putting towards your project plan and your budget, and how you've scoped that all. Our next tip is to plan. So have heavy consideration for your project timeline. Be really realistic, and consider constraints like how many staff are you going to have on, what's the busiest period time of the year, how many live music venues especially, when have you got shows on, so what's actually going to be your start and finish date, when's the best time of year to finish and complete this work, and also prepare a realistic budget. This is key as well because you have to be considerate of any variations that pop up along the way. So make sure that you're not asking, don't be afraid to ask for what you need to make sure that this grant has the best impact and outcome for your venue.
And also just one more thing on that too, I think Rosie pretty much summed it up, but compared to, I guess I'm comparing this to last year's program. I know we have some participants and individuals who participated throughout the process last year, but especially this year, going on to budgets and planning, this is going to be very important for you specifically. We're not going to have the same capacity and flexibility for changes in budgets and complete changes and variations of what the project plan is, just because, again, we have increased the number of the number of options you have as a venue. So we're not going to have the same capacities for you to just, I guess, completely vary whatever you've initially put on your project plan. So I would suggest, again, please pay very specific attention to your budget as well as what your plan is. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, great. The next point is obviously identify, again, really show what the impact of this grant is going to be, what the benefit is going to be to live music in New South Wales, and source any support documents as early as you can. Sometimes, it can be a bit difficulty tracking things down. If you need letters of support, people will agree. Just make sure you're on top of it as soon as possible, have it all together. And yeah. Our next tip is based on writing. It's obviously to make sure that your application is complete. Make sure all documentation, read what the attachments are going to meant to be, and make sure that everything that you upload is addressing that attachment criteria. Don't upload too many superfluous documents. I know I've said, make sure you gather your evidence, but make sure the evidence is relevant and important to what you're trying to say. You don't want to overflood and confuse the assessors with too many. You don't want to dilute the message that you're trying to get across and what your plan is. In this, again, make sure that you don't exceed your word limits. Attach. And you can save and come back to your project. So as you're doing your application, just make sure there's a little button at the bottom, save and close. You can just press that, so you can take your time and be considerate. Don't think that once you open it and you start, that's it. You have to submit at the end of that session. You can always take time, go away, have a look. You can reach out to myself and say, is there anything else that I need? What else? What are we missing? And yeah, we can run through that with you. And our last tip that we have is to make sure that everything you upload is accurate and to check your submission. It's a great idea to reach out to someone that doesn't know what the grant is trying to achieve, pitch it to them, and then make sure that your message is being received and heard and understood. And that's a great way to see if you're hitting the marks on how you should be writing your application. And the last step is obviously to submit. The time frame, very important here. Make sure that you submit as soon as you can, so that you can breathe a sigh of relief and just kick back, be the first one in. That would be nice. Make sure you submit in accordance with the instructions and keep a copy of the notification that your application has been received. The identification code is important as well, so make sure you store the emails. Don't start happy deleting. I know we all like a clear inbox, but try and keep these emails Yeah, so it's easier for later. Now I can see some questions coming in, but first we have a little FAQ section for you. And maybe we should just leave this up as we start answering some of the live questions. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I think let's leave it up. But I will start from just the top. So Alison, who actually works at Music New South Wales, asked us a really good question. Is there any flexibility around presenting 3 gigs a week? Many dedicated live music venues in regional New South Wales aren't able to deliver that many gigs a week due to smaller populations and lower socio-economic status. Again, that's a great question. Yes, we consider dedicated live music venues 3 gigs a week. However, I guess, again, if you're in a regional or a remote place in New South Wales, we obviously understand that, you know, the capabilities are extremely different to having a venue in the CBD. So what I would ask you guys is just send us an email, let us know what your programming is, and we can see whether we can be flexible based on what your business case is. So, you know, just to obviously make it fair for those venues who do program 3 live music, 3 days of music, 3 nights or days, to make it fair, you would still have to present a business case as to why, again, you should be selected because you don't have 3 days or nights that you program. Someone, I think it was Kev, asked, what is the purpose of the Program 1 grant? So Program 1 grant is essentially a grant that is 20,000. And again, we're going to have the information session on Thursday. But basically, it's a grant to it's a grant to help venues get consultation or advice so they can help increase the programming of live music. So that could be DA applications, any type of liquor and gaming applications. So basically applications or consultations to help them program more live music or help them, I guess, increase their capacity as a dedicated live music venue. So I'd probably say the individuals who apply for Program 1 are on the way to becoming a venue that's in Program 2, so a dedicated live music venue. All right. Moving forward, can community arts orgs who run a council-owned community hall venue apply? Unfortunately, no. If you own a local, if you run a local council, state government, or a federal government venue, you cannot apply specifically for this grant. However, there are other grants in Create New South Wales that might be a bit more specific to you. Create New South Wales have an infrastructure department that help, there's one stream for external venues and there's one stream for internal venues, which are more like council-orientated venues. So you can just go on Create New South Wales and there'll be a bit more offerings for you.
So we just have a question from Blake. Just for clarification, is Program 2 only applicable to apply for after applying for Program 1? I understand the thought process behind that, but no, you can apply if you are eligible as already a dedicated live music venue, then you can apply for Program 2 now. The idea behind thinking of it like a step or a pathway is as we want to expand and build the capability of live music venues and make them more fit for purpose venues. If you're not at that stage to apply for Program 1, just say, you program live music once a week, you're looking for an area to expand, you can apply for Program 1 this year, and as more iterations are added and as your live music programming expands, then you can look at a higher level of program for next year's iterations.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some, I think there's a few people who have previously been through this process, whether that be 23, 24. But, I do see a couple of questions on, and this was Pat Jones asked this. If your venue was successful for the first round, soundproofing, so I'm assuming that's last year, does that exclude you from this round? No. So that was last year. 2025 is new energy. So feel free to apply if you've been through the process before. Let's say you were unsuccessful for whatever reasons, or let's just say if you've been in last year's program and you've completed your final acquittals, which is very important. So if you're a venue right now that's currently being funded, for you to apply for any new grant, you need to complete your final acquittal, and those venues sort of wouldn't know what that is. Moving forward, Rachel. So this was, sorry, keep going. Yes, so Fiona, yes, we will be sending out a recording of this whole presentation. And as Rosie said, we'll also be sending out a presentation with all of the information that was included in this presentation. Yes, so saying, I see your question. So anything very specific to your venue, again, we're going to put our emails on this chat after this is finished. If you have a very specific question that's tailored to your venue, please reach out to us on that email and we can answer your questions specifically. So Adam asked, be registered with New South, so it says applicants must be registered with New South Wales Fair Trading under the associations. Obviously, that only applies to associations, not private businesses. Can you please clarify? So yeah, you are correct, Adam. That more so applies for private businesses. But sometimes within eligibility, what you will see is we just create parameters. So that is one for associations, but also so large conglomerates don't just apply, 3 to 5 venues at the same time. So that was more so just to create some parameters around that. And yeah, so I think that's it. I think we've answered all of the questions, but again, if you have any more questions that are more specific to your venue, please reach out to us. Again, we recommend people. Also, one more question. So actually, and I was supposed to answer this. So Kev asked, what are the relevant venue assessments? So Kev, I'll probably ask you to just, if you could come off mute, what do you mean in terms of that?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Great, thanks. I just saw it was one of the criteria. It talked about the relevant venue assessments. So I'm just not sure of the terminology around that. What is a relevant venue assessment?
So when we mean a relevant venue assessment, what we mean is, so basically when you create your project plan and then you, for example, I'll give you an example of last year for soundproofing. So when you create when you create a project plan for a grant, we will require, for example, an acoustic consultant. So the reason why for soundproofing you will need an acoustic consultant is because you obviously need to get an understanding of where the soundproofing needs to be in your venue, what side of the venue needs to be, what's the amount of decibels are leaving and entering your venue. So what we ask then is if you could provide us with the assessment so we can look at it from a technical perspective, because a part of the assessment criteria is we're going to have an individual who sort of specializes in infrastructure. So the more assessments, whether that be an acoustic assessment, I know certain venues provided us a sustainability sort of assessment. So sustainability in terms of the lights in the venue and sort of the benefits of if we change the lighting in our venue, then we would have a decrease in electricity by this much, which means we'll save this much. So just relevant assessment criteria are part of your application that will sort of strengthen your application. That's what we mean by assessments.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Today's been very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's an interesting comment from Alex. And just on comments, it's not a question as such, but just on comments, we always encourage feedback. It's really an important process for the iterations to understand, what is happening in the live music venue scene. So any of you that feel you can't apply for whatever reason, but you feel like, there's a gap that's missed between these programs of where you fit, please reach out and let us know. It's really important, an important part of the process. So, write it down, email me. We can always have a chat about your situation. But yeah, the feedback is important. So thank you for your comment. Alex. Okay, great.
And so just Rachel also asked a question. yes, you'd be able to apply, even though you don't. Okay, so that's a different program, Rachel. I would suggest you reach out to us.
Yeah.
That's a different program. Okay.
Great.
Well,
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And again, we encourage you to come to Thursday's session on program 1.
Yep. No worries. Thank you.
Thank
and
you very
have
much.
a good afternoon. We appreciate everyone.
Speak to you soon.
Well, that was good.